Heartbreaking. It's a good adjective to sum up OU's 45-38 loss to Baylor. And yes, Baylor deserves the credit. Art Briles has done one heck of a job in Waco. Roberr Griffin III, one of the best players the Big 12's ever seen. RG3, please go to the NFL next year. Don't ever have to see you play Oklahoma again. Hard to believe he still has another year of eligibility, but he's definitely worth the price of admission. If you're an OU fan, if you're Oklahoma, what more could you have asked for on Saturday? I mean, you needed Oregon ahead of you in the BCS to lose. You needed USC to win, and USC did their part. And then to see Oklahoma just piss away this terrific opportunity makes you speechless. Beginning of the year, you're #1 in the country. So many high expectations to at least get to the national championship, and to fall on your face, not just against Texas Tech, but to Baylor. I mean, you never lost to Texas Tech at home ever, and you've never lost to Baylor, period. And both those streaks are out the window. National championship, any hope of that died in Waco Saturday night. And again, Baylor deserves so much credit. Art Briles has made Baylor relevant in football after it used to be one of those schools where you saw Baylor on your schedule. Nah, it's like a bye week. Do whatever you want to do against Baylor. As of now, those days are over. And you knew from the beginning it was going to be a troublesome game for the Sooners, because Baylor, first possession, hits a long pass for a touchdown. And even though it got called back, you just had a feeling it was going to be one of those nights. And for the OU secondary, where in the heck were they? Baylor receivers running wide open all night long. Even if RG3 at times couldn't hit them, usually he did. And the big play, which was one of the 4 keys I highlighted in this game, limit the Baylor big play. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just to give you a tease, that was what decided this game. Baylor's big play ability in the first half, and especially in the second half, in particular on that final drive. Defense deserves a big part of the blame, in particular the defense for busted assignments. And the offense deserves part of the blame too, because in the first half, OU only scored 1 touchdown against one of the worst defenses in the country. The OU offense was lethargic at best in that first half. And then once things got going well in that third quarter, beginning of the third quarter, to go up 24-17, and then that ricochet pass that Baylor capitalized on and tied up the game, it seemed like OU had deer in the headlights. They were just stunned and didn't react in time, because Baylor scored a couple more touchdowns after that. It was just a magical night for Baylor. You give them credit, but at the same time, for Oklahoma, it was there for the taking. On Sunday, when the BCS standings come out, OU should be #3. Of course, we say should be because they should have won against Baylor, and that's the ranking they would have had on Sunday if they could have taken care of business in Waco against a team that they've never failed to win against. And there's no excuse. You had 2 weeks to get ready for this game, a bye week. And you might say, well, Ryan Broyles, you lost him for the year. That's a lot to overcome. Ryan Broyles' absence was not why OU lost this game. OU lost this game for so many reasons. Offense didn't do their part in the first half, and it seemed like the defense hardly ever did its part throughout the game. And I do not blame Bob Stoops at all for trying to win the game in that final minute when OU came back and was down 38-37. That Bell-Dozer formation, Blake Bell had 4 touchdowns in the game. I'm going to blame OU for trying to go for it in that particular situation, because you knew if it came down to overtime, Baylor was going to have an advantage, because they were moving the ball. They had over 500 yards in the game, over 450 yards through the air, and hadn't turned the ball over. So Baylor in overtime was going to have an advantage. Playing at home, and 25 yards for them wasn't a whole lot. So don't take chances in overtime. Try to win it there. And then unfortunately the left guard had the false start, and then OU had to kick the extra point at that point. And then the timeout, people are going to be talking about that. Bob Stoops calling that timeout in the final minute because he, again, didn't want to come down to overtime. He knew Baylor didn't have timeouts, and he knew Baylor was going to just run it. He figured his defense, Bob Stoops' defense, was good enough to force a 3-and-out and then with some time left, maybe get in field goal range and try to win it then and there. Naturally, the strategy backfired, but more than anything, Oklahoma's defense in that case backfired because Baylor was not going to throw the ball at their own 23 with under a minute to go. It was either going to be a successful run by Roberr Griffin III, or it was going to be a stop by Oklahoma on 2nd and 3rd down, and the next 2 plays turned out to be big runs for Baylor, and at that point, Baylor thought, you know what, let's take a couple of shots here, and the touchdown to Williams with 8 seconds to go, and it was Heartbreak City for the Sooners. So many high expectations for the Sooner team, and to see it in the way it did officially for Oklahoma as far as BCS national title hopes were concerned, you know, it's heartbreak. And I know people are going to say, well, you still would have had to pass Alabama. You still would have had to finish in the top 2. That's understandable, but you would have been number 3 with 2 weeks to go, and the way this college football season has gone, it's been wacky. You just never know. Now, Oklahoma, in terms of the national picture, Baylor put them out of their misery. Briefly highlighting the 4 keys of the game. Key 1, OU's ground game. I'm going to give Oklahoma a B because between Finch and Williams, averaged 6 yards a carry. That's good. And then, of course, the power formation with Blake Bell scoring 4 touchdowns. Baylor could not stop the short running game all night long. Would have loved to see what would have happened on that 2-point conversion, but because of the false start, we'll never know. Number 2, contain Baylor's running attack because run sets up the pass. I'm going to go C. Baylor only averaged 3 yards a carry. You know, Baylor's run was not why they won the game, but I can't give OU a high grade because they gave up the 2 big runs to RG3 in that final minute, which eventually set up the dagger in the final seconds with that big pass play. Number 3, 3rd down conversions, C- for Oklahoma. They went 6 of 14 on 3rd down conversions, but some of those 3rd down conversions were on those final 2 drives for Oklahoma that helped them tie the game. Commend them for that, but before that, it was struggle city for OU on 3rd down. And naturally, you don't convert on 3rd down, you give Baylor the ball more often, and that's the last thing OU needed to do. And then finally, key number 4, the big one, the whole enchilada, prevent the big plays, and F- for Oklahoma. Lowest grade I could ever offer Oklahoma when doing my 4 keys to the game, because Baylor had the big plays, and it's only appropriate that the game ended with Baylor scoring the winning touchdown on a big play. Home run plays, whether it was luck with the ricochet, or whether it was skill, whether it was just Oklahoma defensively not having things covered, not putting enough pressure on RG3, the night was destined for disaster because the big plays favored Baylor. And you know, Baylor had over 600 yards against Oklahoma State, but they turned the ball over like crazy in that game. In this one, they had a little over 500 yards total offense, but no turnovers. Yeah, turnovers do make a little bit of a difference. So for the Sooners, still have a shot at the Big 12 championship. You have to beat Iowa State, and Iowa State, of course, came off that huge win over Oklahoma State, handing the Cowboys their first loss of the year. So Iowa State, even though the game's in Norman, and even though for OU you got to think it's a bounce back, with OU you never know what you're going to get. Who can be assured of victory anymore, even against Iowa State? And then in 2 weeks, Bedlam. Right now I'm kind of dreading that Bedlam game because OSU, you thought Baylor had a passing attack. Look at Oklahoma State and their plethora of wide receivers and Brandon Whedon. You know, OU's got a lot of things to do between now and Iowa State, between now and Oklahoma State. And Ronnell Lewis, a significant injury, MCL injury. We'll have to wait and see what the status for him is. Doesn't look like he's going to play against Iowa State. Might be MIA against Oklahoma State. Again, give credit to Baylor, and for Oklahoma, they let another one slip away. 45-38, Baylor beats Oklahoma for the first time in their history. Boomer Sooner.